Everybody see this okay? Shouldn't have the same zoom problems we had previously. The text is bigger, easier to read. Okay, this is the session where we're going to talk about client-side exploitation. This is simply this. What is client-side exploitation? Is everybody ready? Hold on, one second. I'm going to check to see if there's the feed here is ready to. Okay, good. All right, well, first I want to go over what is client-side exploitation. It's pretty straightforward. It's exploiting somebody's client software to get some sort of privileged access or do some sort of exploit against them to get a bind shell, do a interpreter, run a program, pull some information, anything that you'd want to do with metasploit. Okay. They can be either user level access or administrator level access, depending on who you compromise and what you compromise on their system. Okay. In the wild, this is most often called drive-by downloads, drive-by attacks, where somebody go to a site that's gotten ranked up in Google by Black Hat search engine optimization for some popular term of the day, and they bring it up and they haven't updated their Adobe Reader in the last day, so they get a virus. But metasploit also includes a lot of the exploits that the people use for those drive-by exploits, as well as some that are fundamental problems in architectural defects of different pieces of software. And I'm going to go into a few of those today. First is going to be a very simple one where it's basically creating an executable that is downloaded and then run. This would be something like you'd see as a virus that was attached to an email a few years ago. Usually this stuff is filtered out. If your email service isn't, then you probably want a new email service or something, because it's basically an executable being sent out to people here. So okay. Okay. We're going to be using MSF payload for this first one, because what we're going to be doing is creating a payload in an executable. It doesn't actually do an exploit per se, it just runs an executable. Okay. This could be used to attach to an email and send out to people. This could be sent on a website saying, oh, here's the latest and greatest piece of software. This is something you post on news groups or BitTorrent, or any method that somebody would download something to run. This is going to run. Okay, it's very, very simple. It's going to do a reverse TCP interpreter that we've all seen. Hopefully, we've all seen previously in classes. All right. And if you look at the code here, this creates both the exploit, which is the first section, in using the MSF payload. This creates the exe, and this part creates a handler for the exe. So when this is run, this handler should be set up with whatever the listening IP is in the port 4444, which is the default one, to receive connections back from it. So whatever user on a Windows system would run this executable is going to be getting a shell back to whomever. Very easy to test. Unfortunately, antivirus almost always picks this up. If your antivirus doesn't pick this up these days, it's either woefully out of date or it's not real. It's like fake antivirus that you probably got infected with something else by already. All right.
You know you're getting error messages that says ports already.
Well, yeah, but if you got 6,000 or 65,536 ports all connected out, to their remote port on that same remote host, you're really screwed.
Everybody.
Yeah, but you've got the entire internet of IPs, plus for that port, plus all of your local bindings. So if it's a TCP connection, your box would crash long before you were able to exhaust those. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. And this is very basic. This will work if you've got antivirus disabled on a Windows XP, a Windows 7, what have you system. But unfortunately, as I said, antivirus will pick this up. Now, on the offensive security site, they talk about defeating antivirus for stuff like this. Unfortunately, this is for Linux also. I'm sorry. We'll come back to that just a second here. But unfortunately, antivirus, getting around it, the stuff that they put on the website doesn't work anymore. At least I haven't been able to get it to work using the techniques they described using MFF encode in probably about a year. Almost everybody has some basic heuristic pattern matching inside of their antivirus, and they do signatures for almost every permutation of MSF encode for common exploits that you might find, as well as patterns for most EXEs, executables, okay? So when the EXE is constructed or run out of something else, it will usually pick it up, especially if it's put into temporary space, like Windows temp or users, username, application data temp, and what have you. And here's an example of how you would go about using that. You can try this. You can bang your head against the wall for hours and hours and hours, and maybe you'll get lucky. But the next time you try it, it probably won't work anymore because they're pretty good at keeping signatures up to date for this. So while the site has got good information on how to use the MSF encode, it probably won't work against modern antivirus, no matter how many permutations you're using. And I wish they'd update that portion of it, but that's really not valid anymore. Even the cheap free ones, Microsoft's own security essentials pick this up every single time if you do this to hide a shell. Okay, but if you want to try, you're welcome to do so. You can also try adding another EXE. So if you find like an ATI tray icon EXE or an updater for Adobe or something like that runs in the background of the process, you try using that as a template on your backtrack distro, and instead of the one they include, it might give you a little bit of extra leeway, but I've tried it in a bunch of different ones, and it doesn't work anymore in that respect either. Anybody have any questions thus far? Sorry, what?
Just looking at that command line, and it ends in just EXE instead of file name on EXE.
File name? Oh, yeah, I'm not piping this redirected to anywhere. You can do a redirect out to whatever. I was just showing this is the number of stages you can go through and still not have it in code. But if you wanted to do it, you do a pipe like you have here, and it will create whatever EXE that you want to call it. You can also do visual VB script, and the VB script will create a VBS file. That probably won't get flagged, but when you try and run the VBS, it creates an EXE that gets run, and that EXE will in turn be picked up by antivirus. Okay. Next I want to go over is basic usage on a Linux system. This does the same thing. Most people don't run antivirus on their Linux system. So if you can get somebody to run a binary on like Linux or OS X antivirus doesn't pick this stuff up. I mean, there are antivirus solutions out there, but most of them focus on finding Windows malware, which is awesome, right? Because everybody runs a bunch of Windows malware on their Mac under OS X, and that's important to pick up. Yeah, it might be on a file share out there. Well, that's great, but it might make sense to do client-side antivirus on the client rather than applying to some other machine that you're not running. just me. But this works on Linux. You can change this to, there's actually OSX shell reverse TCP. That'll do the same thing, or BSD as well. So if you have like a FreeBSD system that you're trying to get something to run on, this will work. When you test this out, you will get a segmentation violation if it's not able to connect to the handler. And if you're running grsec Linux, most of you aren't. And the backtrack is not set up that way. It won't run this without doing a couple of extra commands. But I wouldn't worry about that unless you run into a system that way. If you do, what's that? What about metasploit interpreter?
If you run this against that VM.
The metasploitable one? No, I ran it against the backtrack VM though. It works fine on the R2 of version 4. I don't know. It should work unless there's some sort of additional like stack protection requirements on it, because it makes a very crude ELF binary that will run on a system. Oh, and you don't have 32-bit libraries installed. It won't work then. But anything with an x64, 64-bit system, this will run against if it's got those libraries. Ubuntu for 64-bit, install those, for instance. Backtrack is 32-bit only right now, so it will work on those. The one place where it won't work is on Pin2, because it uses grsec now to enforce stack protection unless you do an exclusion for it. Okay.
Question for you there.
Go ahead.
Would something like a rootkit hunter detect this?
Like the sysinternals rootkit hunter tool, or you know, this isn't really a rootkit though. This is just a binary.
I mean, it checks for modified files and new non-standard directories.
Yeah, in non-user space, but typically if you had somebody downloading this and they ran it in their user directory, that's where you would expect to see those binaries. I don't think most of those check those locations unless it's trying to be the same as an existing binary in the path. So the system paths like user bin or user sbin or user local. Actually, we might even check user local because that's locally built binary space. But that's if it's named the same as an existing binary and it's in the path search order, some of them will pick it up. But if it's in another location, it probably will not. And a good way to do this is you can actually take and use a couple extra flags in here and you take like the ls command off of a system, and you can package it up so the interpreter or the bind reverse shell is injected into that binary. So it'll still work like ls, but every time it gets run, it'll create a reverse connection as well.
You talk about AV and most Linux users don't bother have AV at all. Talk about clam AV, would it pick this up? Or what's an AV that is valid?
Clam AV probably won't pick this up. I've run it on Linux servers where I've done this stuff in user space in the past, and it hasn't flagged on it. I can't say that for certain with the current signatures. I haven't tested it in the last couple of months, but at least in my experience, it has not. Most of those systems those antivirus systems are designed for like mail servers that are running Linux and whatnot to process stuff that are going through them.
Right.
They're not designed to scan stuff on the local system.
So based on what you're saying, is there not any decent Linux client side?
I'm not saying that there aren't any decent ones. I'm just saying that they're not geared towards user space binaries typically, because those tend to be stuff that people play with and do all sorts of crazy hacks to. Yeah, if somebody dropped this in your user space, your binaries directories, like say your user bin or something, or your system place that was typically reserved for system package binaries, they'd be much more likely to check for it there. I'm not for sure on these, and I don't do a lot of testing with antivirus on like systems.
Right. I just want to get your opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's actually get into some of the exploits. All right. There are a lot of exploits in Metasploit, and they're all ranked based upon a few criteria. You know, the speed at which they work, the number of platforms which they'll successfully execute reliably, the number of target application versions that they work against, and the likelihood that the number of payloads that will work with it will work consistently. Okay, you can search in there for just about any major application, be it Firefox, Adobe Reader, VLC, a number of different FTP daemons and clients, but they all have rankings. So you'll see from a low to an excellent for automated exploits, and then a manual, which is a different category. We actually have to add in additional information to have an successfully exploit. Okay. The low, obviously, is going to be the least likely to work consistently and reliably, and the excellent almost always works. MS-08, 067 Net API, for instance, is rated excellent because on the target systems that it is designed to exploit, it works fairly reliably and fairly quickly. It has a large number of payloads that will work with it. Okay. I want to walk you through 3 of these, not MS-08, 067 Net API, because that one is actually a server-side exploit. Now I want to go through some client-side exploits. And the first of these is one for the Firefox browser. Okay, this works on 3.6.4 through 3.6.11. It's rated as normal, so it's not really good or excellent at exploiting, but it's probably going to work. The reason why this one is rated as just normal is it takes a long time to execute. This uses a heap spray. Okay, so basically what it has to take the entire memory heap and spray it until it's able to overwrite the EIP and get returned for it. But it doesn't know where to, in the memory heap, to say return to. So basically I have to populate the whole thing and wait until it gets one that actually works, which takes a while because memory space on the application can be fairly large, right? And this will work if you download this version of Firefox. If it's not already on your VM, it will work pretty reliably in your Windows XP environment. It takes about 2 minutes for it to run, maybe up to 5 if you got a slower machine, and you should be able to get the reverse shell. Okay. I want to walk through some of the elements in this one as well. So the first of these is the server host. Okay, because this is a client-side exploit that affects a browser, you have to set up a server for it. So what it does is it creates a web server, and this is the This is the system IP that you're going to run that server on. By default, it runs on 0.0.0.0. So all of your interfaces, your IPv4 interfaces, are going to be listening for connections on that, right? And there's also a server port that'll get used in here if you want to do something other than 8080, which is the standard one it's going to listen on for web server type of stuff. And you can redirect to that using IP tables if you're using Linux, or if you're running as root, you can change it to 80 and listen on the standard HTTP port. Okay. This is the IP that you want the connection to come back to. So you could actually stage this on a different server running the HTTP and then set up a handler someplace else potentially at another system that you want to connect back on by setting this to be that other system's IP. Now, when you're doing testing, I encourage you to use the same one just to make things simpler. But if you wanted to go out and do some more advanced situations, you could set it up to another server. Okay. Now, this URI path, everybody knows how websites have different paths underneath the slash, right? So this is an example of one. So it'll be the host name, port designation / FFDW, and that will trigger the exploit. If they go to another URI path on there, they'll get an error, or you might have another exploit listening on it, because with the web server, you can have multiple exploits listening at different URI paths simultaneously. And that gives you the advantage of using 4 or 5 different exploits and send them out off to people based upon what they open. So you want to do a PDF one on another system, another place, or you want to use an IE vulnerability in another path, and you don't want to set up a bunch of different listening ports. You want to use port 80 for everything. That's what this allows you to do. Okay. Additionally, I want to talk about browser autophone now. It basically does this automatically. It sets up a whole bunch of URI paths for all of the different browser exploits, and it tries to run them all against the person. So when they initially connect, it redirects them through all of them and tries to launch them all at once. It will probably crash the browser, and if it doesn't, it probably won't work. I suggest you don't use it. If they got antivirus, even if it's a piece of junk antivirus, it may actually pick up on some of those because it uses really old exploits as well as the more recent ones against the browser. You can test it and see how well or poorly it works against a given environment, but if you got two vulnerable things on an application, most likely that application is going to crash rather than give you a return shell. Okay? And it's also going to hog your system up because think about one heap spray taking 2 minutes or so. Well, what do you think will happen if you get 40 heap sprays being attempted against your system? Right? So using these things individually or a few of them at once is a lot more effective for client-side exploitation than using the automated one. Right? Next, I want to go through an example of a file format vulnerability. Now, the nice thing about this one is it can be used against the browser by using the Adobe PDF plugin, or by sending a PDF attached to an email, or having them download it and opening it up separately, putting on a file share and have somebody opening it from there. All of those situations would work with this because it's not exploiting the browser in this case. It's exploiting a plugin which opens the reader inside of the browser or opens the reader individually. This also utilizes a heap spray. It does take a little bit longer than the Firefox one to run, but it is more reliable. And this one is, I believe, set up as a great ranking. It works on more platforms. And it works for anything in the Adobe PDF Reader 9.3 series, so 9.0 through 9.3.0 through 9.3.4, as well as the multi-language ones and the ones that are deployed via Active Directory packages via MSPs. The MUI categorized ones, it works against that as well. This one's in a lot of exploit kits right now that are currently updated, and it's used for a lot of drive-by downloads. So if you want to test it against a system that's been to see if it's going to be vulnerable to it, you may want to test this one out. I encourage you to try this one because this is very widely used out there by malware writers as well as people that are trying to send people PDFs and emails and what have you. Again, this will get picked up by AV pretty readily, so it's not perfect. You want to turn that off before you test it. Okay. Any questions thus far about those last two?
This is not something that is executed by simply downloading a PDF.
It can be. Okay, if you have the browser plugin enabled in Firefox or IE, for instance, and it opens the PDF, it would be triggered by that. If you download it, you didn't have that enabled, or if you set it to download, you'd have to wait until they opened it with the PDF reader for this to work.
Right, okay, but once it's open, regardless of whether or not to be in the browser or on the machine itself, this code executes, capitalizes on the vulnerability, you've got the shell.
Yep. This one doesn't require JavaScript in it work either. That's another nice thing about it. There are a number in there, and some of them will say no JS or no JavaScript. And those are nice because a lot of people in their Active Directory systems, when they push out the package, will disable the PDF JavaScript. Why they put JavaScript in PDF is almost as questionable as why they put Flash in PDF. But, you know, that's Adobe's business, and people still use it, so you have to deal with that thing. And it's a very nice target because unless they keep up to date on this sort of thing, their exploits rolling into frameworks like metasploit every other week, it seems like sometimes, because of the number that affect these systems. Okay. These are typically Windows geared only, even though the readers are for other platforms. They'll crash on like OS X or like if you use Linux. I don't know why you would use a Unix reader for PDFs, but you might have reason to for some manual or something like that. This creates a new file, yes. And the first page of this only creates the file. This doesn't actually set up the handler. I think it's a bug currently in the exploit, but it doesn't create the handler for you, so you actually have to set up a reverse handler for that one after you create the PDF file. And here's how you do that.
So you've got to just like a blank PDF or having it actually open.
You can actually, if you tweak with the MSF payloads options, I believe with this one you can actually inject an existing PDF with this exploit. Some will work that way, some will not. It really depends on the exploit. But if by default it creates an empty one. So. All right. Yeah, this is, as I said, how you create the reverse handler for it. All right. Now, I want to go on the final exploit. This is my favorite for client-side exploitation because it works really, really well, and it almost never gets picked up unless somebody's blacklisted something they shouldn't have, which breaks a whole bunch of applications, and they roll that back. It's the Java signed applet client-side exploit. This is great. You know why this is great? Because almost everybody's got Java installed. It works on every platform with Java. After, I think they added the hooks for this in either Java 1.3 or 1.4. So it probably works on the given system. And there's a Java interpreter that runs entirely in the JVM that is cross-platform. It's great. You can also do things like dropping exes and running commands in the context of the system. But the Java interpreter is nice because it works on all of the different systems out there. You can specify a generic target and have it work. All you need to do is either self-sign the applet, which Metasploit takes care of, or you can pay $100 or less. I think I've heard as low as $50 to get a signing key to sign the exploit so it looks legitimate, like a legitimate applet. All the user have to do is click allow. That's it. And then they've got full access to either their user level or system level, depending on what account they're using, via an interpreter or a reverse shell or inside the JVM, or dropping out and using a specific binary exploit or reverse shell. Okay. The reason why this is so effective is because so many people use Java for things like SSL VPNs and thick clients for applications that try to be cross-platform. They require additional connectivity. It's got a fully implemented HTTPS stack in it. It's got handlers for a whole bunch of different platforms. And even cooler about this, it can be hooked into an existing jar file or WAR file and have the other application add the signed wrapper around it using Metasploit, and then you can have the existing application also load the interpreter or reverse shell along with it. So you can take a jar file, decompress it, add your jar to the manifest, recompress it, and re-sign it, and send it on. Looks like it came from you with your self-signed key or your cheap signing key, and it will run the other application as well as execute your code. Now, that might be valuable. It's basically backdooring something that almost never gets picked up by antivirus, and if it does, it's usually because they're blacklisting too much. It works on all your platforms, provided you're not doing a generic one. And it's very reliable and very quick. You can migrate out of this into another process pretty easily. And so when they close their browser, they close the Java window, it'll continue to have a reverse shell for you or an interpreter. Okay. It's pretty easy to set up here. Let me go through this one. It's multi, notice here. So it works on multiple systems. Browser. And this doesn't have to be in browser, though. This actually will work as a jar file that people can download with, like, say, a batch or an SH file for a Unix-based system that'll say java.-jar space the jar file name, and it'll run that way too. So a lot of different things. Here's where you set an applet, and I'm going to give you an example here. you can set up a, what is it?
That's me. Sorry.
You can set up a an applet here, and say you want to go on an IRC channel. Say, I'm testing out my new IRC client. Nobody here's been on IRC before, I'm sure. I'm testing out my new IRC client to connect to my network. Hey, here it is. Give them a link to it. It's a web chat thing. It pops up. It says it's web chat. It's by generic tech company name, Infomedia. Okay. Now that's what's going to appear when they get the pop-up saying, this is either a signed applet by this company. You want to allow it to do elevated operations or something of that nature. It varies depending on the Java version. And all they have to do is click allow, and then it'll run. Well, you'll see later in when Georgia goes over some of the more advanced stuff in social engineering kit, there's even more annoying ways to do that, where it will pop up continuously using this applet, which it leverages. So until the person clicks allow, it'll continue to pop up. I mean, it's great. If you're going to use an exploit, you want it to work reliably. This is very good. It's considered excellent. And there's a great, very well-featured interpreter that works cross-platform. I encourage you to use this whenever you're doing your testing. There are a few commands in there that will not work, like PS, for instance. But the nice thing about it is type shell. That works. Then you can do all of your command line operations. So if it's on a Linux system, you've probably got PS, right? And if it's disabled command.exe, you can upload a new command.exe and run that. It's pretty great. Okay. So this was how we would create it. Start the listener. Target 0 here, for instance, that's a different parameter here. That's generic. By default, this actually sets to 1 for Windows. I set it back to 0. When you show targets, it'll give you the Java-based exploits that's got available to it. And that's the best one. By the way, if you want to re-sign it and change some of these details, like the certcn and the applet name, so it doesn't read as metasploit and Metasploit Incorporated, you'll need to install the JDK, which is also free for download, at least for the moment. Sun has, or Oracle hasn't required a support account for the new releases yet. But the nice thing about 1.4 series, they no longer allow you to get patches for those anymore without having a support account. So if you've got an exploit that works against those, you might want to try those as well for anybody who's using something older. Say a system that runs Cold Fusion. Any questions about this one? Really? Okay. Sorry, what? Yeah. It's extremely powerful and extremely reliable. It's the one that I use. Okay.
But I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yep. And that's why I actually put in this stuff here. Any of these items, you can put into an RC file from views on down, and it will set it up pretty much. All you have to change is Metasploit system IP, and they should all work.
You can strip it and variables too.
Yep. Can. And you can check some of the cheat sheets on how to do that stuff, set globals and whatnot. Or you can type the resource command and load one, test it out, then stop that job, or leave it running in the background and load up another one and test that one out, and so on and so forth. Okay. And I think that's it.
Sure you don't want to do one?
What?
Sure you don't want to do one?
Do one?
Yeah, buy one. Just walk through doing it.
Sure, why not? Do I have Java installed is the question. I don't install Java as a rule because of this kind of thing, but every once in a while you have to do it for a demonstration. Let me see if I've got one available.
You said you'll make this available?
Yeah, I'm actually, I've already got it on my site, Border Gateway Protocol.net, so I'll email it out so they'll list everybody.
What was your site?
Here. I'll put it on the screen. You don't want to see that. And I believe that's the correct URL. Oh, awesome. Thanks for showing me the magnifier on the wrong screen. Yeah. Don't have a number pad, so I can't use the hotkey. I'll put it up in just a moment, in a second. Okay. Okay, it's up there.
That PDF,
Open it and find out.
is it charging? Just allow whatever, right?
No, it's not. Actually, it's the easiest way for me to export it from Google Docs. So I will show you the Java one. I do have Java installed.
So I mean, this PDF thing, and I think it's out there, but in summary, the migration from, you know, if you clicked on a PDF that was employing this exploitation technique, they would typically migrate to something else that might be detectable. I mean, you would never know it.
Okay, what they first will do is inject in the memory space of the application. If it's embedded in the browser, it'll basically hang the application for the period of time that it's running. And in Windows, sometimes, depending on the version, will say it's not responding, you want to shut it down. That'll close it. So the best way of doing things is to do an auto run shell. And you saw in an earlier class how to do an auto run on session to migrate off to another program. That's the best idea, because as soon as the thing hangs up or the person closes the application, that shell will close. So using something to migrate out to, for instance, a known process that's running as the user or a system. If they're connecting as Firefox, you can write a short Ruby script, interpreter script that'll check for Firefox processes and inject into that. If they're running into Internet Explorer or Explorer.exe, which is almost always running on Windows unless they change out their shell, we'll be running inject into that, and that will remain consistent after the fact. The reason why you don't want to run into a system process is because the user may not be system, and it may, if it's a Windows 7 or whatnot, it'll jump into UAC mode. There are ways to bypass UAC, but it won't work with direct migration like that. Okay. Session obstacles. Emulation. Hopefully that will. Y'all read that okay? Does it need to be bigger? Okay. So use and then exploit multi. Tab completion's nice. Browser, Java. Signed applets. Okay. Show targets. See. By default, it goes to 1. Change it. Set target. 0. Okay. Set payload. Reverse TCP. Okay. Show options. Okay. I have the JDK installed on this machine, so it will do the re-signing. So we can set applet name, demo app. Set cert CN. Okay. Set SRV host. 207.126. That's one IP address I have down up there. I usually use that one for testing this kind of thing. This is not the same one as Port Gateway Protocol.net sits on. Yeah, multiple IPs is nice. That way, if somebody sees you doing one thing from one, you can connect back to another one if you have multi-homes on a system. Be careful. If you're using this for penetration testing or testing whatever, do not violate the EULA of the people that are providing the service. Some places will allow you to do penetration testing from their hosted services if it's documented that you are allowed to do so, and others explicitly forbid it. So definitely read up Rackspace, for instance, they offer dedicated servers or VMs, and they don't allow this sort of thing without a business grade account. But other people, like I believe Linode actually provides a lot of flexibility when it goes to it. Unfortunately, Linode doesn't.
Better let them know ahead of time.
Yes, you do, especially if you're doing intensive scanning, because that'll trigger off alarm bells, and they'll put you in a separate grouping if you're doing that sort of thing. So when you pick in a provider and you need to do this stuff from external locations, be very wary of that sort of thing. Also, if you can, get one that has native IPv6. Most don't provide that, but they should be in the next 6 months to a year, because a lot of their customers are going to start switching over to that sort of thing. I know that Linode doesn't yet, but they said they should be before the end of the summer. They do? Oh, they must have added it then. Awesome.
FE80, CFD, 4BFF, C7F, 60BD/64.
2, 4, 9.
What's the provider that you're talking about? Linode.
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 ODE. They're really cheap.
I pay $20 a month for a box that I use primarily as a bouncer and desktop.
$20 a month for.
So well, there's about 13 different operating systems you can set it up.
Right. And you can change it whenever you want.
Oh, I see. You could there.
It's like a personal server.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about ISP.
Yeah, it covers a host of a personal server.
It's a virtual service.
$20 a month.
Yeah.
And then how do you get into?
This is easy. You just you set your file domain, and you don't need to file domain. Well, you don't actually have to, but it has its.
So I mean, basically, it's all of OS.
No, when you log on to your two plugin,
I see.
it'll list a bunch of OSs and you pick them. And you tell Alex in this space, we got 20 gigs or
I
something
think
like
that's 30 on.
that. And you sit there and stand up like I'm running the button or something. And it's in the 1-2 box, it's out on the internet, I can reach it from anywhere. And you build accounts on it, run a web server if you want to, or whatever.
There's a website. Also,
So you could do pretty much any kind of testing using their pipe.
Provided it is legally authorized. If they get an abuse complaint from somebody you don't have a letter from, they'll revoke your service, and most of those places will comply with law enforcement. Now, I do not use them for anything illegal, and I suggest you ever do that sort of thing specific
Amazon
at all.
EC2 has a free tier that allows you 750 compute hours time for free a month, which is not to run the server 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
They also have CUDA support now.
What?
They have CUDA support now, so you can lease out and do password brute forcing using their cloud.
And I work for Amazon.
Yeah, on the C2. Yeah.
EC2?
So, all right. Well, let me.
AWS.amazon.com. And you can pick your Linux.
Okay. I might actually have that.
Yep.
Why don't you not use? Wait a minute, I thought it was just under 24 hours.
No, it's 24 hours a day plus maybe 7 or 8 hours. 750 hours of compute time a month. And then it's 1.5 cents. I actually use it and I've never paid more than $5 a month.
It was a discount.
No, that's a regular customer.
Yeah.
I don't get a discount on EC2, so.
I'm actually waiting on the schedule.
Oh.
What's up?
Oh, good question. Is it possible that this, is
Yeah, actually in the slides, all the stuff that you need is actually in there.
Okay, I mean, it's all a bunch of it. I didn't know if it was.
Yeah, every example that I used, including the Java one, is in the slides. You just need to replace the server IP with whatever you're running as.
Right, understood. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I've got one running here now. I had to change, didn't like the space in the applet name. Yeah. You can do quotes around that and it'll probably take it, but for whatever reason it didn't like that one. Yeah. Anyway, now it's running. Let's go here. Yeah, I can get shell in your system if you're running Java and you click accept or allow. Loading, please wait. The nice thing that set does when you see that is it actually will copy other pages and put the applet inside of it. So I just need to say run. Yeah, I just got shell.
Yeah.
Windows
It'll
7.
It'll sit there with that blank page. It will never load anything.
Yeah, Windows 7 fully patched with the current version of Java. No problem whatsoever. So, sessions, -1. Hey, shell.
And I mean, there's nothing there to ever get for anybody instituting defense against because you have, as a user, sort of, you said allow. So essentially, it's social engineering.
Yep.
Combined with everything.
Yep.
What
Yep.
you see is set.
Yeah, Social Engineering Toolkit is definitely this taken to the nth degree. It annoys people until they click what it wants you to. It's really annoying. I mean, some of it is very backtrap specific in its implementation because that's what it's written for. So getting it working on other systems takes a little bit of shoehorning, but otherwise it's a brilliant piece of work. And it's constantly being updated so long as there's Arnold Palmer out there to drink. If they ever stop making that stuff, the tool's going to die, but you know, whatever. So anyway, see, Service Pack 1, Windows 7, run, yada, yada, yada. Run one of my scripts here. Unfortunately, you'll see a lot of the interpreter scripts in the Java interpreter won't necessarily work, and they'll tell you this won't work with this type of interpreter. I know in an upcoming release, they're going to add something that will not display the scripts if they don't apply to that particular interpreter, but for the time being, you can try them out, and it'll give you an error. Okay. Also, if there's a command, like ps, for instance, it won't run because it's not available as part of the standard API inside the Java client interpreter right now. But you never know. JDEC might get a bug up his, or is it JDEC who wrote this, or whoever wrote this? Might get a bug up his ass and add the functionality for different operating systems.
How do you find the PID of
Well, you can use the API on the system, so you can use like a WMI call, for instance, which is accessible through this. We'll go to shell. Yeah, I mean, if you got something you can do from the command line, you can do it. Command line Kung Fu, check there. It gives you so many equivalent commands in Windows that you'd never think were possible. You know, like type is cat. All right, and then find str is grep. It's not exactly the same, but it takes regular expressions. Let you do things. So if you know anything about Windows scripting, you can do it here. And this works against your Linux system too. So any guys in your Mac, I can show you. We'll close out or your OS X system. I can show you this working. If you want, I'm not going to migrate or do anything special. You'll see everything on the screen here. Oh, any takers? How about in your Linux VM? Does anybody have a problem doing that? Should have Java in there.
Hold on.
Okay. You can get Control Z to do background or type background.
I'll give you an address in a second.
Okay. You don't need. I've already got the handler listening, so.
Oh, okay. Let's see it.
Got that in there. Hey, somebody try to connect.
So that's multiple clients that connect.
It sets up a handler. It's a web server. So what happens is multiple people try and talk to a web server.
So it would be interface with multiple sessions.
Yep. Yep. I mean, even if it's the same source IP, which typically happens if somebody's you're doing exfiltrating past a NAT, which is a single exit point, you'll still have that whole range of ports available to you, the 65,000 plus ports for them to connect from. So, and you could set up multiple handlers to do all sorts of to point back to other IPs that you've got. You can do different URI paths with that same system. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility, and it's really what you should play with, because the more familiar we get that, the more you can work around small problems. So say their proxy blocks you, or they have they block your IP address you're going out to, just add another listener on another IP address if you got multiple ones set up. It's pretty straightforward. And more advanced use, you can try doing IPv6 tunnels using Terrio, which is built into most modern Windows operating systems, and it's pretty easy to install in Linux too. Joe Klein's not here today. He was here on Thursday. He'll go buck wild on that kind of things. So did anybody click allow? Or accept? Or okay? Yeah, this is what happens when you get actually just the request on the web server. I'm actually connected to my box over Teredo.
207.
Sorry. It resets the terminal down every time something alerts, so paste it over here. This is my favorite SSH terminal, by the way. There's an OS X version for it too. Secure CRT. You've probably seen it around. I've used it since I was in college, like 12, 13 years ago. The really nice thing about it is, Rob Fuller talked about using script on the command line. Well, this can record scripts, every command and escape sequence that you use just by recording it here, and you can export it using other terminals. You can strip these control characters out of it, so look for string matching when stuff pops up, do certain operations. It's really nice if you're using something like a terminal, because it can do RS-232 and other stuff to replay commands. What? Yes, that's what I said.
RC32.
I said RS-232. I'm sorry, I mumbled. But hey, I got another session. 2 sessions. Awesome. Sessions. Which one? 2?
Yeah.
Shell. Oh, you don't see anything. Well, guess what? sometimes on Linux systems, it doesn't print out the PS1 variable stuff like you would see on a typical terminal. But that's typically what you'll see when you get a reverse connect. Do a shell from Linux.
Somebody's running Mac OS. You name?
Oh, is somebody running Mac
Yeah,
OS?
you can tell by the look at the Firefox.
Oh, yeah.
The Firefox.
That's great. Yeah, who's running antivirus? Does it pick anything up? No. So let's do kill.
It's Mac OS. Look at that /application/Firefox.app/content/Mac OS.
Yeah.
Gecko. Oh wait, that's Gecko is just the Mozilla.
Is there no P?
It's not on. What's there?
Piece of crap.
Are you being owned by BSD?
I use FreeBSD at home a lot, but
I'm just being discussed.
it actually has the P in that stat, at least the one FreeBSD they're using. Yeah, you won't get some of the stuff like up arrows and whatnot, but to each their own. So don't make any mistakes. Yeah, it's on. You want to say something?
No.
Okay. Yeah. But anyway, exit takes me back. Background. It's running QuickTime. System, yeah, that probably is OS X if I had to guess, because Linux systems don't typically have that path.
That is a VM.
Of OS X VM? What is it?
Template.
Really? How'd you get QuickTime to work on that POS?
Why does it say Mac OS with Firefox stuff?
The host is. The Firefox session that I'm connected to is running in Vim2.
Really? Neat. We're working in.
VMware Fusion.
Yeah. It's showing all the-
You've got the tools running.
Yes.
That's what it sees. Okay. So.
So just to clarify, you have a shell on his host, not only his guest.
No, I just have it on as guest.
So you're able to see all his host processes?
No, those are. It's using
His VMware.
VMware tools is what it's saying. But, yeah, this is on a Linux machine here. So netstat, there's an AP rep, JRE, or Java. So kill. Ruh-roh. I killed my session. Okay. Anyway, you got a demonstration. It works against all the different platforms and whatnot. Anybody want to see anything else? All right, great. Well, I'm done. Got the slides. If you have any questions about them, want any more enumeration on what they're doing, please let me know. You can email me or email a list or whatever. There. If any of y'all are not on the Nova Hackers list, there are a couple people on there that work at Rapid7 that can answer any questions you have. IRC is another great resource for asking about specific exploits too. Okay, I'm done.